Hello, everybody. Welcome to a brand new edition of the Between the Lines podcast. I'm Edgy Tim, your host, along with Mike Clark. And Mike, we are through 7 weeks of IHSA football. We are inching ever closer and closer to playoffs and playoff pairing night. And knock on wood, and I'm literally doing that as we speak, I'm hoping the weather continues. Is that too much of an ask?
I hope not.
It's been great.
I've been enjoying it lately, and we'll actually be talking a little bit more about that later. But yeah, let's have some nice weather the rest of the way for sure.
So the Bears are winning, and all is good with the world, at least on Sundays when we record. So that's all good. But we are going to break down the games that we were both able to cover. Mike Clark, I know you are continuing to be a monster out there, covering multiple games in a day and definitely staying on top of things. And I've been getting out as well. So we'll break down our games. We will certainly look ahead to another intriguing week coming up in week 8 this coming weekend. And as always, Mike, we'll break down several top performers from week 7 action. So why don't you kick things off with the games that you covered this past week?
Yeah, so I mentioned it before in my new role with Southwest Regional Publishing as sports editor for their 4 papers, and also I'm relaunching sports coverage for the Southwest News Herald, which covers basically the Archer Avenue corridor on the southwest side of the city. So I'm seeing a few more of those games. Not sure, they're not quite the big marquee matchups necessarily, but big for our coverage area, and some interesting things coming out of them too. So anyway, on Thursday I went out to Stag Stadium to see Back of the Yards in Gage Park. Back of the Yards wins 14-8, a couple of rushing touchdowns for Marco Franco, Back of the Yards, and some fans may recall that Back of the Yards was one of the up-and-coming programs, public league, when Seamus Murphy was there, who has moved on now. He is an assistant at Sandburg. But it's a fairly new school. They got their own football stadium right on campus there. It's a nice situation, but Seamus leaving and the pandemic really were kind of a 1-2 punch for the program. They didn't play in the pandemic year, and they're kind of getting it back. Mark Morgan is the coach there now. He was the coach at Washington for a while.
Mike?
Now for, I think, 4 years, and it's kind of getting it back going again. So, it's kind of one of the things that I've noticed over the years, that one of the things that hurts a lot of programs in the public league, and not just in football, but in other sports too, when there's a coach there who builds things up and that coach leaves, it's sometimes really tough to keep things going because there's just, so many obstacles that you have to deal with, and it's unfortunate. Most of them are resource-based. A lot of schools either don't have their own stadium or don't have a good practice field, don't have a good weight room, and all sorts of things like that. But that's kind of the story there. On Friday, I was out at Mount Carmel and JCA, and it pretty much lived up to its billing. Mount Carmel wins 35-21. Jack Elliott was back after missing the Brother Rice game. Had 239 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, including a 78-yarder to a freshman, Marshawn Thornton. And, a lot of the talk obviously was about keeping Jack healthy. And it's kind of a balancing act for him because, as I wrote in the Sun-Times, he understands it. He doesn't want to not be around, when the Caravan goes into the playoffs, but at the same time, he's a pretty fearless kid and a pretty fearless runner. So knowing how to try to, not make him not be Jack Elliott and
Right.
also keeping Murphy as kind of the balancing act for him and for Jordan Lynch both. And Jordan talked about it after the game too. He said, we don't want to be stupid about this. The kid's tough, but as Jordan said, football happens and plays break down. So, even if it looks like it's going to be okay, sometimes, you get a hit the wrong way, and that's a difficult situation. But he was really sharp, and the thing that I know we talked about, we're going to start talking about Player of the Year at some point, and the difference that he makes for Mount Carmel, which is, has a lot of other good players on the roster, no doubt about that. But he is just such a difference maker, just in terms of his presence. And Jake Jaworski, the Joliet Catholic coach, talked about it too. He said that, Jack is kind of the guy you have to see in person. And you may know this from the recruiting side of it too.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you can look at the film and you can look at Jack admits his measurables are not great. He's 5'11", but man, the plays that he makes, the way he extends plays, the throws that he makes, it's just such a difference maker. And that's why, he's the reason that they're, the team that's going to play really deep into November, and certainly has a pretty good shot at winning another title. It's fun watching him play, as you know.
Yeah,
But,
it is. And what I wanted to add is, it's funny to hear Jack Elliott. The people talk about him and the way he plays, and boy, sounds like everyone's talking about Jordan Lynch when he was a player. That same intensity. That was Jordan Lynch. Jordan Lynch truly would run through a wall if he had to, and that's Jack Elliott. So I find it really interesting to have to hear Jordan, the coach, talk about kind of Jack, the player. So to me, they're just very, very similar approaches and mentalities, which, as you mentioned, he is going to be one of the key reasons if Mount Carmel does a repeat. He'll definitely be a huge factor. And the other thing I'd like to ask you, Mike, have you seen a team maybe this year or the last few years that has as much young talent as Mount Carmel does this year?
Well,
they're loaded.
Yeah, they are. The receivers in particular, Quentin Burrell's another one.
Yep.
Marshawn Thornton, like I just mentioned, a freshman. They're going to be good for sure. The other thing I guess I should mention on the Mount Carmel side, Daniel Taylor Jr. probably had his best game as a running back for Mount Carmel. He was over 100 yards, and that kind of took a little bit of the pressure off of Jack. They were able to have, really establish a nice running game outside of Jack running, so that was another key. For JCA, did have a couple of 100-yard rushers. Nate McGreeny, 18 for 139 and a touchdown. Larry Stringham, 19 for 102 and a touchdown. And the thing that kind of struck me about JCA is, right now we're in, like you said, week 7, and it feels like the longer we go into the season, the better JCA is going to be, because their line is really good. They have 2 really good running backs, and there's going to be games when the weather is going to be awful. It's going to be sleeting. It's going to be snowing. The footing's going to be bad. And, some of these teams that rely an awful lot on passing in the year of the quarterback may have some harder times moving the ball, but I don't ever foresee JCA having trouble running the ball, up until if they wind up playing Thanksgiving weekend, they're going to be fine.
Well, totally agree. And you look at who they've played this year, and let's face it, they're playing 7 and 8A competition almost every week, every other week, and then they're going to go into 5A, which again, Mike, I think that just gets them even more prepared for a state title run in 5A. So yeah, I couldn't agree more.
And we do need to do a roster shout out to Mount Carmel, which I think has probably the best.
Yep.
The game program. It is, for those of you who haven't seen it, it's on cardboard. and it is a trifold. So basically, you open it up, and the outside is a poster on one side, and then you open it up on the inside, and you have depth chart and stats and all sorts of cool historical information from Mount Carmel. Then in the middle, you have, on the right side, you have the two rosters. So it's very good for those of us covering the game.
Yes.
It's great for fans. And it's they were selling them. It was interesting. They were selling them 2 for $5, and it's like, well, okay, I didn't really need 2, so I said, just give me 1, and they said, okay, that's $3, and so I guess there is a discount if you buy 2 of them. And the other thing that struck me again is that the game production at Mount Carmel is it's the best in the state. There's no doubt about it, because you got the massive video board, and you have running stats. You have trivia contests. You have like highlight videos. They pulled one from the trivia question this game was in the Super Bowl. I don't remember what the number was. What Tampa Bay had a Mount Carmel alum and a JCA alum. Who were they? And
Allstott,
most of them are, right?
And Simeon Rice.
Yep.
How about
I'm
that?
Sure. Yeah, I'm sure most of the longtime fans will get that one. But so they're showing highlights of both of them as well.
That's awesome.
It's just a remarkable production level. I mean, there's a lot of colleges, especially small colleges, would love to have this kind of production level. So it's really a fun place to watch a game. So moving on, Saturday I saw a public league doubleheader, actually. First game was Lincoln Park and Westinghouse. Lincoln Park wins 22-14. I was looking forward to seeing Lincoln Park, which is undefeated. They moved up from the white to the red this year. They're 7-0. And the big reason why is another quarterback, Cam Toussaint, 108 passing yards, 54 rush yards, and a touchdown. And the numbers don't sound like massive, but it was when he did it. He had the big plays when he needed them. And Lincoln Park's an interesting story. They're a 7A school. I think they got around 1,900 kids. And it's a school that has had some success in basketball, a little bit in baseball. So they've got some athletes in the school. And again, it's a big enough school that they have a few more resources than some public league teams. So maybe a program to keep an eye on. Westinghouse, always like going out there. Julius Carter, we've talked about him a lot, just does such a great job there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a college prep school, so not everybody can get in. And this year he has 16 seniors, he told me, and 10 of them are in their first or second year of playing football. So his ability to stay in the red, which is the upper division in public league football, and to really develop these kids into good football players. He had an all-stater last year. Askia Bully was an all-state quarterback for him. He's out at College of DuPage now. And it's really it's a nice place so they have an on-campus field too, for those who don't know. No lights, so they play all their home games on Saturday afternoon. And it's just a nice atmosphere. They got the concession stand, and I think I said this last year, and one of the things that just, again, amazes me about Julius Carter, just what he wants to do to make the program better. Last year I got there real early. I think I told this story on a podcast last year, actually. He drives up, he opens up the back.
Yeah, I remember you telling us. Yep.
He's got all the concessions.
Awesome.
The cases of pop, the bottles of water, the boxes of candy bars, all that stuff in his SUV. He takes it out, puts it on the table. Then he goes off to coach a football game, and then after the football game's over, well, he loads up what's left and puts it back in his SUV for next week. So I mean, and again, it's the stuff that you know, suburban coaches and
Yeah.
Catholic League coaches,
Yeah.
you don't have to do any of this stuff.
No.
But he does it, and he doesn't complain about it. He doesn't even talk about it either. If I hadn't been there, I wouldn't have known, because it's not like, he's talking about what a great job he's doing. He just is a servant of the community. So it's
Awesome.
it's always fun to go out there. They have a really good running back this year. Westinghouse does. Devian Cross had 25 carries for 120 yards and a TD, and they got a good shot at getting back to the playoffs this year. They're 4-3 right now, so if they split, they should be in. Even if they wind up 4-5, they got a shot. As are these days. So anyway, my fourth game of the weekend was out of Winnemac. I went to see Curie and Mather. Curie wins 30-0. Condors had a couple of pick sixes, including a 90-yarder by Saquon Cummings. And this is a program to keep an eye on. I've talked about them a little, I think, 2 weeks ago maybe. But Curie it's a big school. It's one of the biggest schools in the state, let alone the public league. You got 3,000 kids. Jarve Lewis-Bay has been a winner at Sen and at Marshall, so he knows how to win in the public league. He took both of those to school programs to state playoffs, and he's just getting his system in right now. And they're getting some athletes. They got some basketball players. That's the program at Curie. If you can get the basketball players to come out and play football, that's going to be a good thing. But, and Curie not that long ago was really good, like we talked about,
Yep.
when Tyson LeBlanc was there, when Jay McDonough was there, one of the best programs in the city. So keep an eye out for Curie. They're going to be back. And that is my weekend.
Yeah, you got a lot going on. You're staying busy. You definitely are. Well, good. Friday, Mike. So I get in the Edgy Mobile at 3 p.m. Start heading north. Start heading downtown. And I'm heading downtown. And I'm heading downtown. And I'm heading downtown. At one point, Mike, I went 3.3 miles in an hour.
Oh, my goodness.
I could have possibly parked the car and walked to DePaul Prep maybe faster at some point. So I left at 3 o'clock sharp. I pulled in my parking spot at DePaul Prep at 5:45. So 2 hours, 45 minutes. But Mike, not complaining. Number one, I'm glad I left early because I might still be in the Hubbard Tunnel trying to find my way. So went to DePaul Prep. I actually hosted a camp there about a year ago, so obviously very familiar with the tremendous building and upgrade that has happened at that campus. And Mike, you talk about really nice atmospheres. DePaul Prep is a really nice atmosphere on a Friday night for a game. Nice stadium. I mean, Mike, literally, if you had a really good arm, you could probably hit Lane Tech with a rock, which I obviously do not recommend whatsoever. But just north of DePaul Prep is Lane Tech. Obviously Lane Stadium right next to it, and then Kerry Wood Field next to that. So it's a vibrant area, to say the least. And a great game. DePaul Prep comes from behind, gets a 25-22 win. Just a really, really nice job. Mike Passarella has done I think a really good job with DePaul Prep. Kind of is taking that program to the next level. They've already got a 6-1 record, so they've already clinched a spot in the playoffs. Going to wind up in 4A, and Mike, they're a nice team. They're the kind of team that, if you're looking maybe kind of for a sleeper in the first few rounds of 4A, I think you definitely want to consider the DePaul Prep Rams. Some nice players. Juju Rodriguez is a quarterback. Again, a little bit of everything. Good arm, runs pretty well. And Mike, I just was really impressed at how well DePaul Prep played, especially in the second half of this game. Going up against a very good Carmel team. Jason McKee, obviously everyone familiar with him, former Bears fullback, and now he does radio for the Bears. Coaches and a lot of Bear connections. Obviously, Olin Kreutz is the O-line coach, so you've got some very good coaches there, some very good players. I had a chance to see Trey Taylor, who, if you're anywhere familiar at all with football recruiting in Illinois, you know that name because he's a 2027 kid. I believe we have him already ranked as a 4-star. Mike, he's got offers from literally just about every Power 4 school in the nation right now. A Michigan assistant coach was there watching Friday night, and again, Trey is going to be something spectacular down the road. There's no question. Impressive young man, great skills, and again, definitely showed a lot. But again, shows you how well DePaul Prep played, is that they were able to kind of combat what he could do and kind of shut down the run game when they needed to. So again, just a great game Friday at DePaul Prep, again, as they won 25-22. I am happy to report that my commute home was much, much smoother than my commute in. So that made things much better on the way home. Saturday went up to Glenbard West. The Hitters were hosting again on a Saturday, hosting York. Hadn't seen York yet, so definitely wanted to get that done. And again, York, very impressive performance. They ended up winning 24-14. York's defense did not give up a point until I believe the fourth quarter. Mike, kind of very familiar. I know there's a lot of different faces this year for York, but from an effective standpoint and just an impact standpoint, Don Gelsimo, the head coach at York, again, was a D coordinator, and then obviously took over when Coach Fitzgerald took over, went back to Marist. It's a really good team, huge up front. Joseph Reif, who's committed to Notre Dame, is playing both ways. Just really good talent and big kids, obviously, up front. Bruno Maisel is the quarterback, and again, does a little bit of everything. Really nice runner, can definitely be a threat with his feet, throws a good ball, and just a hard-nosed, blue-collar team that, they do a lot of things well. They don't make mistakes. They don't turn the ball over, very few penalties. And, again, if it sounds kind of like last year, that's kind of how they are. They're just a very, very solid team. I was really impressed at how well they played. Glenbard West, really Terrion Oriental is back. He is the main offensive weapon. There's no doubt. He ended up playing quite a bit of Wildcat on Saturday for the Hitters, able to get them going a bit in the fourth quarter. It's Mike. It's just a Glenbard West team that, if you depends who you talk to, and we know obviously Susie's a big voice with projections, and there's some other coaches that do them as well. So the Hitters are 2-5 now, and the thought is if they can win their final two games, they probably are going to wind up getting in as in 5-4, because I think what's going to help out Glenbard West is their non-conference opponents. They had very, very strong non-conference opponents that will end up helping them out from a point standpoint when it's all said and done. But again, they're one of those teams that if I'm a 9-0 and I see 4-5 Glenbard West pop up, I'm still not real happy about it. I don't know if I'd want to play a 4-5 Glenbard West with really house money, if that makes any sense. So they have Proviso West left and then Oak Park River Forest. So two teams right now with losing records. I still think this team finds a way into the playoffs. And Mike, like I said, I don't know if I want to play them in the first round.
Yeah, I don't know what we're basically going under the assumption that all 5 win teams are in, and there's been nothing to change that opinion. I don't know where the line is going to be for the 4 win teams. West has 40 points right now,
which is good. It's a good level.
Yeah, which is probably pretty good. And part of that's going to depend on Hinsdale Central too, which is sitting at 3-4. So Hinsdale Central has 36 points. So, and Hinsdale Central has, let me see, they have OPRF and Downers North. So that's a decent shot that they're going to be 4-5 also. So I think I'm trying to remember what Seuss was saying. I think he was projecting somewhere around 16 to 18 for 4-win teams.
I've heard it from there to maybe as low as 11 or 12. So it just kind of obviously fluctuates from week to week. But I think either way, if that
Yeah.
happens, I think Lombard West would be one of those teams. So again, still, as you mentioned, still a lot to be determined and figured out. But if again, and I think that's going to be one of the themes in the playoffs when the brackets come out, Mike, is we're going to see some very familiar names and some very unfamiliar seedings.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think I mentioned to Mike O'Brien. So here we are with, not even including Glenbard West in the conversation. We've got Mount Carmel, Maine South,
Yep.
Loyola, all with 2 losses or more. Warren is another one. And going into the season, I think that if you thought any of those teams would have 2 losses,
Yeah.
let alone all 4 of them, and some of them have 3.
Yeah, there's
Maine
a
South has
lot.
3 losses.
Brother Ice is
Yeah.
another one that's at 4-3,
Right.
and Ignatius is at 3-4. So there's going to be teams that are going to get in.
Right. Yeah, and like as you said, there's going to be some matchups that the higher seeded team is not going to care very much for, but that's part of the fun of it. So.
No doubt.
So let's move on to a few other big games worth noting. Maybe the biggest one, Palatine 28, Frem 21 on Thursday. Denton Teachins had a late fumble recovery to seal that win for the Pirates. Another quarterback we haven't talked about before, but let's talk about him now. Will Santiago from Palatine, 16 carries, 117 yards. Also 15 to 24 passing for 176 and 2 TDs. So, no. I mean, it feels like every week we talk about yet another quarterback. Yep. So, Will is having a great year. I know Michael Bryan said he was very impressed with him. Johnny O'Brien, the from quarterback, Northwestern commit, had another monster night. 24-39, 374, and 2 touchdowns. So, there was another big one on the other side of the MSL. In the East, Prospect knocks off Hersey's 30-27. Noah Easter, 131 rushing yards. Jack Skoog, another quarterback for us, who's actually been around for a while as well. From Prospect.
No doubt, multi-year starter.
152 passing yards for Hersey. Brendan Jenkins, their running back, ran for 225. Over in the Catholic League, ESCC, crossover game, Loyola 42, Providence 6. And probably the stat of this game is that Ryan Fitzgerald had 1 carry. And like Jack Elliott, he is being mindful of his health. And as are the Loyola coaches, he was 9 of 15 passing for 106 yards. 3 TDs, but again, only the 1 rushing attempt, which is, that's part of his game, like it is for Jack as well. So, how that, plays out over the rest of the season will be interesting. Will Carlson had a big game receiving for Loyola, 4 catches, 78 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Here's the fun one. Cary Grove 44, Huntley 43. And it feels like this game just goes crazy every year.
The last couple of years, yes, very close the last 2 or 3 years.
Well, last year was the one that Huntley seemed to have won. I don't know if you remember, there was a dive toward the pylon.
Yes, I do. Video. I remember seeing the video.
Yeah, and it was called a touchdown, and then it was overturned.
Yep.
Giving Cary – oh, no, I take that back. Huntley got it. Now I remember it was called not a touchdown, and then it was called a touchdown, and Huntley wound up winning that game. So that was a loss for Cary Grove last year. Cary Grove comes back and wins this year, 44-43. Holden Boone from Cary Grove, 158 rushing yards, 2 TDs, and caught the game-winning conversion. Some massive numbers on the Huntley side. Braylon Bauer, quarterback. 26 of 35, 286, 5 total touchdowns, and Wyatt Fleck, a receiver, 13 catches, 167, and 3 touchdowns. So, Braylon Bauer, it's kind of funny because, like Will Santiago, first time we mentioned him, Jack Skoog, first time we mentioned him, Braylon Bauer, I think the first time we mentioned him, but again, three more quality quarterbacks to add to your list for this year.
Yep.
So, and down in my hometown, Michael O'Brien came here.
How about that, huh? Big city guy from the big city coming down to Wilmington.
Yep. Wildcats knock off Coal City 21-14. Ryan Kettman, 140 rushing yards and 3 TDs. Kyle Farrell, 111 rushing yards. So it's a big win, obviously, a huge rivalry around here. Two towns that are about 5 miles apart, basically. Yep. Two great programs have big postseason hopes. So
yeah, and if things go according to plan, you'll get them both in separate classes too, which would be nice.
Yeah, for sure. I want to shout out to Joliet Central, first win since 2019, 37-17 over Plainfield Central.
Yeah,
key performers.
Thomas Hart is their coach. I'm sorry, Mike. Thomas Hart is great guy, and I know the Joliet Herald had a video interview him after the end of the game, which I thought was really, really well done. And Christian Smith has been kind of their go-to guy the last couple of years, and just got to give him credit. I mean, he mentioned this year. I mean, they had back-to-back games where they gave up 70 points, and the fact that those kids didn't quit, and it's week 7, and a lot of teams have folded it in, and they obviously played hard. So yeah, no doubt. I think everyone in the Joliet area that knows anything about Joliet Central and that football program, believe me, everybody felt great for them finally getting that win. And I think it was a 40-game losing streak, I think.
Yeah, and actually they had a 56-game losing streak earlier.
Yeah, and broke it against Plainfield Central, ironically.
Right. Yes, and their last win before this one was against Plainfield Central, too. So, Christian Smith, 107 rushing yards, 3 TDs and a pick in this one. And Jaden Poplowski had 2 interceptions as well. And the last one on my list here for the big games, Geneva squeaks it out against Wheaton North to stay undefeated, 28-24. Talon Taylor, 6 catches, 167 yards and a TD. And he also had the pass breakup right at the end of the game, and I'm not sure I realized that he was playing a lot of defense right now.
Yeah, they bring him in. I know in the Batavia game they kind of brought him in as a safety, kind of like on 3rd and long and like kind of more obvious passing situations. But yeah, it seems like they've been Coach Thorgerson has been bringing him in a bit more and more to play defense. He's really good back there, so it makes sense.
Yeah, well, I mean, his athleticism is off the charts, as we know. So, and if you've got an athlete like that and you're in a situation where one play is going to win or lose the game for you, it's like you would hate to lose the game because your athlete like that is not on the field. So we do have a few more big performers.
You need a breath? You want me to take a couple of these, or are you going to be okay?
Nah, I'm okay.
All right.
Burlington Central back in the playoffs for the first time in quite a while. 52-21 win over Prairie Ridge. I don't know that that margin surprised me a lot.
Yeah, it surprised a lot of people, no question.
Jackson Alcorn, the quarterback for Burlington Central, 24-35, 469, 7 total touchdowns.
Yeah.
One of his receivers, Rocco Boss, 7 catches, 207, 2 touchdowns, and 8.5 tackles. The Rockets are, they're one of the smaller schools in that conference. I want to say it's mostly a 6A, 7A conference. I think they might be 5A. So, that's not always easy to compete, but it's a big win for them for sure. Jacob Bell, who's somebody we've mentioned quite a bit, had another big game, 304 passing, 4 TDs, 42-0 win over Neuqua Valley. Ethan Plum, another quarterback we've mentioned a lot, 22 of 28, 275, 3 touchdowns, and a 34-14 win over Lombard North. Also for the Huskies, Keaton Rinke, 8 catches, 172, and 2 touchdowns. Jonas Williams had another big game against Lockport, 47-14 win, 14-25, 276 and 4 touchdowns. Bert Goucher from Sycamore, the Iowa commit, is a linebacker, 9 of 11 passing, 238, 4 total TDs, and a 28-13 win over LaSalle, Peru. Here's a school we haven't mentioned, I don't think. Piatone running back Chase Rivera broke the program record for rushing yards with 300.
Wow.
Scored 4 touchdowns and a 52-14 win over Streeter. Yeah. The top of the Illinois Central 8 is pretty good this year. Mantino's undefeated right now. I think Piatone's only loss was to Wilmington. So pretty good top of the conference there. Also a far northwest game, Marengo and Harvard. Marengo wins the game 33-28, but a lot of individual standouts here. Marengo's David Lopez, 293 total yards, 4 touchdowns, 10 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, and a pick. And on the other side, quarterback Adam Cook from Harvard, 27 for 274 rushing and 4 TDs, plus 130 passing yards. So those are our standouts for this week.
So I know again, look for this every week. We'll reach out over the weekend on Twitter and ask if you have any questions for Mike or I or both of us, or any thoughts or comments on IHSA football or what have you. We're more than happy to answer those for you, Mike. And I think somebody was asking about the weather from what I remember.
Yeah. Marty Machasik from the Daily Herald, our friend, asked if this was the best weather year we've had. And I said, well, other than pretty much melting a few weeks ago at Taft on a Saturday afternoon, it's been pretty good.
Yep.
And he was just mentioning that we haven't had rain yet or storms or thunder or lightning. So from that standpoint, yes. I mean, Indiana and I think downstate Illinois.
Yeah, downstate had some. Yep.
No, they had some games that got pushed back till Saturday because of Friday night storms. But yeah, I would say that's been pretty good. We did have one more question too, and I will tell you what the question was, and I'm going to go look and see.
No, go ahead. Look. By the way, I'm looking at the advanced forecast for this week, so we're not 100% jinxing ourselves.
Okay.
At least we'll go with Chicagoland in general. Friday looking like 71 and sunny. Saturday looking 74 and sunny. There is a slight chance of rain Tuesday. And that's about it, my friends. So fingers crossed. Hopefully this run of really nice weather will continue for a little while longer.
Okay. Here's the question. I really like it.
Okay.
It's from @Dom Bartimeo, whose handle is A51Dons. You're the quarterback. Who is the best quarterback you two have ever covered? So why don't you start out?
Oh, great. Best.
Well, okay, I can.
No, it's
I can
okay.
Start
Go ahead.
To give you a little bit of time. Okay. I'm going to say Donovan McNabb.
Good one. Yep.
I mean, and I'm basing it on his entire career, not just his high school career, obviously, tremendous career in the NFL and in college. He was one of the earlier dual threat guys, I want to say, because, back in the day, the dual threat quarterback was not as big a thing as it is now. And he was a guy who could run a little bit, but I mean, it probably helped that he played in the Mount Carmel system and the option, the Mount Carmel quarterbacks, under that system, you had to run the ball a little bit.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
There were always good running backs in that system, but the only way the system worked is if there was the threat of the quarterback pulling it in and running as well. So all those quarterbacks, and honestly, a lot of those quarterbacks were run-first quarterbacks too. There were, there were a lot of Mount Carmel quarterbacks in the glory years who didn't really throw for a lot of yards because that wasn't really what their focus was. But Donovan was a kid who could a kid in those days. Obviously,
Yep.
he's a grown man now, but I mean, he was a guy who could definitely throw the ball very well, obviously, and he could run the ball too. So I'm gonna, I've seen a lot of them. I'm thinking about the ones that I've actually seen personally.
Right. That's
he
what
was,
I go off of.
and the other one. Let me give you another one too. Antoine Randall.
Oh, you took mine. Okay. That was mine.
Okay. Well, I saw Antoine play all three sports actually: football, baseball, and basketball. He wound up obviously playing in the NFL as well, and another dual threat guy who was just
unreal.
Maybe the best overall athlete I ever saw. I would say.
Yep.
Because the Cubs drafted him. The Cubs drafted him for baseball. He played football and basketball at IU, and obviously a long career in the NFL. So those are the two, I guess, that would stand out for me.
Yeah, I mean, if I needed a guy to go 80 yards in under 2 minutes to win a game, he's the guy. Because he could run, he could throw. I mean, hell, halfback option throw. I mean, unbelievable talent, speed, wiggle, burst. I mean, everything. I mean, and obviously he went on to Indiana, had a tremendous career at Indiana. Obviously makes it to the NFL, and now he's I believe he's still an assistant in the NFL, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so too. Yeah.
But Mike, he was unbelievable. When he ran option, it was unbelievable. You'd think you'd have him tackled, you'd have him stopped, and he'd just spin out, bounce out of 2 tackles, and run 80 yards down the sideline for a touchdown. Amazing all-around athlete. To me, J.J. McCarthy's pretty up there, but I don't know. Do we include him since he technically didn't finish in Illinois?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he was, I would say so for sure.
And again, it was the whole COVID thing, and so I certainly consider him and one of the more modern ones for sure. And I think what impressed me the most about JJ, I mean, you could talk about his accomplishments and state titles and what have you. To me, it was his personality. He was just a great kid, and he stayed a kid. I mean, he just never seemed under duress, never stressed. Just had fun, and it just, you watch his accomplishments, and he was the same kid before the game and he was after the game. So those are, and Donovan McNabb, pal, that's a hard one to argue for anybody because he was that good. So yeah. Great one.
Just looking it up here, Antoine is now the receivers coach for the Lions. So.
Yep. And then there was one other. Since you had one other, I'll throw one. Well, okay. I guess technically I have 3.
Okay.
Don't know if you remember the name. You probably do, but maybe some people don't. But do you remember Greg Williams when he was at Bolingbrook?
Oh, yeah.
Another speed option guy that was just a magician running the option for Phil Acton at Bolingbrook. And, and Bolingbrook had a ton of great running backs over the years and major dudes. But, boy, Greg Williams was something else in his day at Bolingbrook. So I just want to throw that one out there. But, no, great question. Love those.
Yeah, for sure. I think that leads us to Week 8 games, and we have another big one in the West Suburban Silver, Lions at York. Lions just keeps on winning.
Yeah.
I think that maybe they were, not the first thought at the beginning of the season. Downers North coming off, finishing second in 7A last year. York made the semifinals in 8A last year. And Glenbard West is Glenbard West, but Lions just keeps on winning. They beat Glenbard West. You noticed that, the first time they beat them in 8 years, I think. So
we talked about this last week. I think and to be fair, they had a lot of graduation losses. So I mean, there's some newer faces on Lions this year, and you give that group of seniors, these seniors, a lot of credit because there weren't a ton of kids coming back with a bunch of experience, but they've really stepped up and filled those roles, and they've been rolling. So it's been impressive what Coach Butcher's done with Lions this year, no question.
Interesting Catholic League ESCC crossover, Mount Carmel at Fenwick. We talked about Mount Carmel. Fenwick, still only one loss, and Nate Marshall, as everybody knows,
is a monster.
He's the top prospect in the area.
Yep.
Ios Epinesa from Edwardsville is the number one prospect in the state, I believe. He's going to Iowa. Nate, of course, is another. He's a two-way player now too, and he's D-line is what he's going for college for, but he's also a really dangerous weapon as a receiver as well. So that's going to be an interesting one. Sandberg at Naperville Central. Naperville Central still undefeated, and I'm kind of looking forward to that Week 9 game with
you and a lot of people.
Central and Lincoln Way East for sure.
Yep.
Sandberg got knocked off by Andrew. Big win for the Thunderbolts this week, but that's a big win, or that's a big game in the Southwest Valley. Couple of other games of note: Manuka at Oswego in the Southwest Prairie West. Oswego still undefeated, and
Manuka a big win over Plainfield South on Friday. So definitely makes things interesting this week.
And out on the Interstate 8, Morris is at Sycamore. Morris has lost in the conference to Rochelle, but could create a three-way tie. If Morris can beat Sycamore, then that would be a three-way tie between Morris, Sycamore, and Rochelle. Sycamore is still undefeated. We talked about them a little bit earlier with Bert Goucher. Again, he's got to be one of the more unique prospects, isn't he?
Yeah, he is.
He's a star quarterback in high school, and he's going to be a linebacker in college.
Yeah, he's played quarterback, I think, pretty much his entire high school career. I think last year he kind of ended up did a little bit more on the running back side, just more or less with having another quarterback in the system. But yeah, he's just a big kid, really good athlete too, obviously. So yeah, he's a definite threat both sides of the ball, no question about it.
That's about all I had. Do we have anything else to talk about?
No, I think, I mean, again, we always talk about player of the year. We can get into it, but, once we get into the playoffs and maybe we get a round or two into it, we'll be able to narrow some things down. Cause right now, Mike, I think our list is up to about 75 quarterbacks for player of the year. So.
Yeah. The funny thing is that, well, I don't know if it's funny, but the thing about it is that I think we talked about this like way early in the season too, is that, well, I know when it was when we talked about storylines, and at that time we were looking at Jack Elliott and Ryan Fitzgerald, understandably based off of last year. And I think one thing that I'd said at that time, it still holds true. The player of the year is going to come off of a really good team. And, it's not like when Andre Dawson won the NL MVP for the last place Cubs. I mean, that's, even though there's some teams that aren't very good that have good players, the reality is that in high school football, the player of the year is going to come off a really good team. So you can kind of take a look at who the best. I mean, you talked about that too. It's like you've got your list already, right? Your top teams. You have a candidate for every team, pretty much. Then, so I'll be looking forward to seeing your list when you're ready to reveal it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, no doubt about it. No, Mike, I think that's going to do it. Again, we march forward and get even closer after this coming weekend to playoffs. So the playoff picture starts getting a little bit clearer and clearer every day. And again, looking forward to getting out this weekend. Again, no idea. Still need to sit down and try to figure out what games I'm going to cover, but I definitely will be out there as much as possible. And I know, Mike, you're always out there, so we'll look forward to the multiple games that you'll be at, and hopefully the multiple games I'll be at this coming week. All right, so we'll wrap it up. So again, from Mike Clark, I'm Edgy Tim. Thanks, everybody. We certainly appreciate you listening and the support. Again, if you have questions, look for that Twitter post over the weekend, usually Saturday night or Sunday. We'll put it out there, and love to hear your feedback, love to hear your questions, and just again, thanks. Go watch a game this coming week, and we'll talk to you at this same time next week. So for Mike Clark, I'm Edgy Tim. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week.